All right, gang, let's take a look. Chapter 4, we're on slide 28. We're going to finish, excuse me, we're going to finish chapter 4 today. So right now, what we're looking at, we've been talking about strings, we've been talking about lists, there was, a side step into hexadecimal and stuff like that. I don't consider that the most important part of the chapter. We'll take a look at the quiz and see how many questions over those topics are in there. Maybe I'll just give you the answers to those particular parts. We'll see. All right, so here we're back to strings. Python includes a set of string operations called methods that make tasks like counting the words in a sentence easy. So if you have a string called sentence and you call sentence.split, it'll make a list of each one of those. It'll split it by whatever you specify. If you say you want to split it by commas, then it'll split it by commas. If you say you want to split it by spaces, if you just use split without a parameter, then it splits it by spaces. Let's go take a look. Let's go take a look. So let's see what our number is here. We are on lecture HIJ. All right, so lecture J. Yeah. Right. Chapter 4, page 28 plus. Let's define a function called string examples. And then let's define a function called main. And all main does is call string examples, right? And then we're going to make a function that calls main, right? Well, it's not a function, but we're going to use our if statement. If underscore underscore, two of them, name underscore underscore equals equals quote underscore underscore main underscore underscore end quote, then call our main method. And we would call the reason to do that. We do that so that if we ever imported this file, lecturej.py, into another file, it wouldn't automatically run our code, right? Because it's been cordoned off inside this if statement. All right, so some string examples. I love Gilligan's Island. Hope I spelled Gilligan correctly. All right. Let's get the length of the string, just out of curiosity, right? X is equal to LEN-S. Print S comma, quote, LEN equals, end quote, comma, X, right? Then let's split it up. Words equals S dot split. Now let's see what would have happened if we put a period there, something like that, right? Some kind of punctuation. Do you? Question mark. There we go. Let's see how that looks when it gets split. Now let's print the words list, right? We could also print the number of words in it, right? X is equal to LEN words. So when I printed the words out, I could also print the length of it out, right? Words, comma, quote, LEN equals, end quote, comma, X, right? And let's run it. Call it lecture J, of course. Never save anything into the Python 37 directory or 838 or whatever you're on. Save it somewhere else. All right, I've been using the Mac so long, I'm on the PC. On the Mac, the run module is the very top option. And so I'm going to keep accidentally clicking that unless I just remember to run it by pressing F5. Anyways, here we go, right? I love Gilligan's Island. Do you? If we counted out the length of that string, it would be 34. I'm not going to bother, right? Because I trust the computer. I love Gilligan's Island, period. It left the period as part of the words. Do you? Question mark, right? So it left in the question mark. It left in the period, but it removed all the spaces and it put all of those separated things So what did it do? It used these spaces as the so-called delimiter. And notice that when we use multiple spaces here, it went ahead and treated it as though we're a single space. It's not like we had an empty list item here. So these spaces are what are known as the delimiter. It limits each word, right? Denotes, it separates the words, right? Separates the elements. What if we didn't like the fact that it had periods and it had question marks in our words, right? We might want to get rid of those. Let's see what happens if we try to get rid of those. Let's do this. Before we do our sentence, let's remove the punctuation that we can think about, right? A couple of different ways we could do this. But one is just the replace function. S is equal to S dot replace, parentheses, quote, period, end quote, comma, quote, quote, right? There's nothing between these quotes, right? So what we're saying is please replace all periods with nothing. That's going to remove all the periods. And the same for the question mark, right? S is equal to S dot replace, question mark. Please remove all the question marks and replace them with nothing. I mean, we could replace them with something else if you wanted to. Like if we wanted to be really emphatic, we put some, exclamation marks in here just to look at, what it says, just to prove that it's doing the replacing. But ultimately, we want to remove them, right? So it replaced, well, that one already was an exclamation mark. No, it wasn't. It was a period, and that was a question mark. And then after the dot replace, it replaced them with exclamation marks. But instead, let's replace them with nothing. Right? And I did it again. All right. And so it replaced the punctuation, some of it. It left the apostrophe there. Maybe I think that's okay, right? Apostrophe is kind of part of the word. Now, if it had been used as quotes or something like that, anyways, we've proven the point. We could do the same thing with commas. If there were any commas in the sentence, maybe there are. In this case, there aren't, but what if there were, right? Now, if you wanted to, you could do something like if, quote, period, end quote, in S, right? If there are any periods in S, then do the replace. And we don't really need to do that because it doesn't take that long, but we could do that, right? How about this? Let's do the same thing for here. If there's a question mark, quote, question mark, in S, quote, colon, S equals S dot replace. If there's a comma in S, colon, S equals S dot replace, right? We're just kind of showing off this functionality because that's functionality is important as well. Let's make this print statement a little bit more interesting by putting the words original sentence equals, end quote, comma, S. And then let's put parentheses. Well, by the time we start adding parentheses and things, it's starting to look like we should have made this a formatted print string. So I'm going to put an F there, put a curly brace, S, end curly brace there, and then comma, or how about len equals curly brace X, end curly brace, end quote, end parentheses, right? And we can do the same thing down here, right? F, quote, new list equals curly brace words, end curly brace, parentheses, curly brace, oops, parentheses, curly brace. They look too much alike, right? Parentheses, curly brace. Well, I don't want my curly brace there. Parentheses, L equals curly brace, X, end curly brace, end parentheses, end quote, right? Like that. Just make our output look a little bit better. Well, I didn't put the word original sentence. I thought I did. Oh, I did the same thing. I did not run it the correct way. So I got the old output. Let's run it. Press F5. All right, here we go. Right, original sentence equals I love Gilligan's Island. Do you? New list. I love Gilligan's Island. So you saw what it did, right? What if we wanted to make it all uppercase? Well, that's easy enough. Just, we could say S equals S dot upper. I think that's going to do the trick, right? I love Gilligan's Island, do you? So now all of our words are uppercase. What if we hadn't wanted to do it that way? What if we had wanted to do it while we were processing it? What do I mean by that? What if we wanted to leave the original sentence all alone? Looks like we're missing a close parentheses there. I'll fix my print statement to do that. Is there a string.reverse command? What else can we do? String methods, Python 3. Let's go and take a look at what we can do. Capitalize, we could capitalize every first letter. Let's do that. Let's just capitalize every first letter of our words. Now, it would have been hard to capitalize every first letter of this, right? That would be smarter than the function's going to do. I don't know, would it? Let's try it. S equals S dot capitalize, right? Like that. Maybe I'm going to start putting spaces there. Don't know why. It makes it look a little bit better or a little bit worse. Oh, and I said I was going to fix this by putting parentheses there. Oh, and I think my output's going off the edge of the screen, and I apologize for that. I just noticed that. Anyways, here we go. See, it only capitalized the first letter of the word. That's what dot capitalize does, is it takes the string, which is here to here, right, and it just capitalizes the first one in it. Instead, we want to capitalize the first one of every word. So we're going to use what's known as string comprehension. You know, if I just make this say sentence equals and list equals, maybe it'll be not quite as long. Why don't I shorten this sentence, and that way all of our output will still be on it, right? I love islands, right? That's nice and short. Where'd that come from? That shouldn't have been there. Surprised it compiled. I could reduce the font size if I had to. Yeah, it's fitting in here, right? Original sentence, I love islands. Well, that dot capitalized didn't work. So instead, I'm going to capitalize the first letter of every element in the list. Each element in the list is a separate element. Let's do that. So let's get rid of that. And instead, what are we going to do? We're going to use what's known as list comprehension. List comprehension is when you use parentheses to enclose what looks like a for loop, which acts like a for loop. So it's words equals, and then in the square braces, we're going to say for item in S, and we're going to say S dot capitalize, parentheses in parentheses, for item in S. So it's kind of backwards, right? The for part goes at the end of the specification, and then the function, and we need to say item in here, right? No, we don't. But this needs to be the word item, right? Because that's the string. Each element of this list is a string, so we're going to call cap.capitalize on every element in the string. I'm calling it element. I could do that, right? For element in the string, right? Call element.capitalize, or you could say for every value in the string, capitalize that value, right? Like that. And there we go. I don't really like what happened there. It broke it out into individual letters. Oh, because I used the original sentence, right? I did not use the new list. I used the original sentence. Now forgive me, but I'm going to change this word words just to a capital L, right? I like using uppercase L for list. It's just a personal quirk, right? And it looks like I have this in the wrong order. I never noticed that before, so I was probably getting the wrong output. I'm sure I did. After we split it is when we should have counted the length, right? So let's start adding some comments, right? S.upper converts string to uppercase, right? S.replace Y, comma Z replaces every occurrence of Y with Z in string S, right? Guess we could say it converts string S to uppercase. Want to look better like that? I could even cut these notes out and put them up at the top, you know, if I wanted to. Trying to get it to fit all on the screen here. It's not the easiest thing to do, but there we go, right? All right. What else did we do? We did if that in that, right? If X in S returns true if item X can be found in string S. That's what we've seen so far. I don't know if it's better to have the comments in the code or up above it. Make it easy for you. Well, if you open up the notes, you know, after you review the video, when you're looking at it, it might be nice to have them all up there. So maybe I'll do that, right? How about dot split? S dot split, or L equals S dot split, converts string S into a list of items separated by the delimiter, right? Which in this case is just space, right? If you don't specify, how about I go ahead and put X there, right? Converts a string S into a list of items separated by the delimiter X. If you don't specify a delimiter, it splits the list by white space, right? Tabs, spaces, double spaces, end of lines, that's how it does it if you don't specify anything there. So for example, if you had a list of strings, a list of numbers, right? A string of numbers, S is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you wanted to convert that to a list, you could do so, right? L is equal to S dot split, parentheses, quote, comma, end quote, right? rewriting this a little bit. If X and S colon is true, if items X can be found in string S. All right. List comprehensions, a little bit more. L is equal to, curly braces, function V for V and L, right? Is that what we wound up calling it, or did we call it value? Or yeah, we called it value, right? But here I've been using single letters, right? Or, right, list is equal to V dot function, depending on, you know, how you're supposed to call it, for every V and L, for V and L, right? Runs the function for every value in list L, right? I'm going to call it every, runs the function or method, and then I'm going to replace this word to method, because that's really what they are. How do you know the difference between a function and a method? A method is attached to a variable, right? And so if you ever see something dot followed by what looks like a function call, it's actually called a method. That's all it is. A function is a method is a function that's attached to data like that. So this is a method, right? Because it's attached to that variable. When we used len, that's not a method, it's a function because it's not attached to any variable. There's not anything like that. Guess we could list that, right? What is a method? A function that is attached to a variable, like s dot upper is a method because it's attached to the s variable, whereas len s is a function, not a method. Because it isn't attached to any variable. Well, that makes sense. All right. You know what? Maybe I should have just opened this up with green text, right? You know, triple quotes, all that. Kind of late for that. I guess I could pause the recording and do that. All right, I converted it all to green text. So what is list comprehension? It runs the function or method for every value in list L. Examples of list comprehension. There we go. Okay, we're about done, I think, with this one slide. How about that? 30 minutes on a page. That's why we take a while, but we're pretty thorough, right? And that way, when you see this stuff in the chapter later, we can just kind of nod our head and go, yep, we know it. And if it wasn't in the chapter to begin with, then we're that much smarter. All right, so these are our string examples. How's about if we wanted to go through this sentence and figure out which letters were uppercase and which letters were lowercase. Now we converted the entire sentence to uppercase, right? So I don't know about that. Let's make a new sentence then. Write that. How about Darth Vader is the hero, isn't he? Right? Guess he kind of is at the end, right? He kills the Emperor and all that if you're a Star Wars fan. So anyways, let's do for CH in S, for every character in S. Well, firstly, let's print it out, right? Just to make sure that that for loop works, right? right? Well, that certainly didn't work. What did I do wrong? I printed out the sentence each time. It's not what I meant to do. I wanted to print out that character each time, right? And there we go, right? Darth Vader is the, if we scrolled all the way down, we'd see the words hero. But let's check to see if the letter is uppercase or lowercase or what, right? Now what I'm going to do, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to leave that off. I'm thinking about the output, the way I want the output to look. So let's just roll with this, right? So we're going to do if ch dot is upper, parentheses in parentheses, colon, print, parentheses, ch, comma, quote, is uppercase, right? Like that. And I did it again. All right, so the sentence, Darth Vader, we had a capital D and we had a capital V, right? Let's print that out. Right? Print parentheses S, right? Like that's our sentence. Well, let's check to see if it's lowercase. If ch dot is lower, parentheses in parentheses, right? Print ch, comma, quote, is lowercase, in quote, in parentheses. What about if it's a space? I forget if the function name is space or is white space or what. Let's just take a stab at it and make it is white space. That looks too long. Print parentheses, and what is white space? It's spaces, tabs, and new lines, right? Is white space, in parentheses, end quote. That's probably wrong. I'll have to Google it up. Nope. String object has no attribute white space. Why don't we go and look at the string functions? It's just is space. Okay. All right, let's fix it. All right. Just is space, right? Then print is white space. Run it. All right, so D-A-R-T-H, that one was uppercase, that one is lowercase. R-T-H, right? V is uppercase, right, is white space. All good so far, right? Maybe we could even be making this if-else's, right? Because something is going to either be uppercase or lowercase or white space. And heck, there's an is digit as well, right? So how about this? If it's uppercase, else if it's lowercase, else if it is a space, right? Uppercase, lowercase, is space, else if ch dot is digit, parentheses, in parentheses, print, ch, comma, quote, is a digit, in quote, in parentheses. Right. Is there anything else? Else, colon, nothing, right? Oh, and I forgot, in this language it's not else if, it's elif. Gotta remember that. Right? There we go. Else, print, parentheses, ch, comma, is special, parentheses, punctuation, right? It's a special character. End parentheses, end quote, end parentheses, right? So ch is a special char, right? because I can't think of any other cases, right? It's got to be either a letter as shown in here, right? Oh, I really need to set this monitor up differently and what's being recorded differently so I don't have to keep squeezing things like this in order to get it to work. All right. Run it again. All right. So, DARTH space, Vader space, is space, the hero, comma, space, isn't he. So I think we got everything. Every single thing was processed. So this is going to prove the point again that whenever you have a series of if-elifs, always put a final dangling else colon and terminating else here, right? Just to handle everything or anything that isn't handled by the stuff above. Even if you think that you've handled absolutely everything, go ahead and put an else here anyways, even if all it does is print an error message. All right, what if we were trying to count the number of uppercase versus the number of lower cases, right? Uppers equals 0, lowers equals 0, right? And so when we find an upper, let's add 1. And if we find the lowers, let's add 1 to that, right? And then we could print that out at the bottom, right? Print. And let's make it a formatted print. So F quote, uppercase letters found, colon, curly brace, uppers, in curly brace, end quote, in parentheses. I'm just going to copy and paste that and change the word upper to lower. Save some time. Lowercase letters found is lowers. There we go. Just going to put a comment here to make my tabbing easier to follow. Right, that's the end of the for loop. I'm going to get rid of that print statement. We don't need it. We are printing the letters anyways, right? I can put a space there. We could even put a comment up here describing what we're doing, right? Process each letter in sentence S, determining whether the letter is uppercase, lowercase, white space, a digit, or punctuation, right? That's what we're doing here. And how are we doing it? We're using is upper, is lower, is space, and is digit. So why don't we add those to our notes up here? S dot is upper. Oops, need to put it inside the green text. Right? What is S dot is upper? Returns true if everything in S is uppercase, right? Because you can call it on a string as well. It's just a single character. We could do, right, like that, and S dot is upper would return true. But if we did it like this, S dot is upper would return false. Now down here, we're doing every single character separately because that's how we want to count it. But it works on strings as well. So functions is upper, is lower. Whoops, I forgot the word is. Is upper, is lower. S dot is digit. S dot is space. Returns true if S is all white space, right? Returns true if S is all digits. Doesn't sound like good English, but we're going with it. Returns true if S is all lowercase letters. And returns true if S is all uppercase letters. just like that. All right, now we need to end our green text there. Let's see if it counted the uppers and the lowercase correctly. Run it. Right, and so it found 2 uppercase letters, D and V. Lowercase letters found 23. And we could print out the number of spaces and punctuation that we found as well. All right. Hey, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So a method behaves like a function, but it has a different syntax. It's always called with a given data value. I was calling that a variable, called an object. And so the syntax for a method is the variable, the object, followed by a period, followed by the method name. And then inside the parentheses, you can list any necessary arguments. So methods can accept or expect arguments and return values, right? A method knows about the internal state of the object. Well, that's because it's being called on a variable, right? If that was a sentence or a list, right, then of course the method knows about the sentence or the list. In Python, all data values are really objects. Even ints, ints, strings, and floats are all objects. To view a complete list and documentation of string methods, you can go into the shell prompt and type dir str. Dir returns a list of methods for that particular data element. Let's prove that to ourselves. dir parentheses string, right? Or not? dir s, because it's a sentence, right? S is equal to hello, end quote. dirs. There we go. I don't know what's going on here. All right, and so these are all the methods that are part of a string. And there's a whole bunch of them, right? Replace. Here's one called find. Here's one called rIndex. Is alpha. Ooh, is ASCII. See if the character is ASCII or not. Is digit. Is an identifier. I wonder what that one is. Is numeric. I wonder what the difference between is numeric and is digit is. Why don't we Google that real fast? Is digit versus is numeric. I bet is numeric handles periods as well. Oh, is numeric returns true if there are any digits in it. But is digit guarantees that it's only digits. And is numeric also seems to handle Chinese. So that's good to know. If somebody typed in a number in Chinese, is numeric would return true for it. Oh, learned something new. I hadn't noticed that. So dot split, you can split something based on periods. Let's do that, just for funsies. Looks like a kind of emoji, right? 2 eyes with a little mouth underneath. All right, let's run that. Let's make a sentence. It's actually got numbers in it, right? Yeah. Why would I use periods? Anyways, 1.234, and you could say L is equal to S dot split, parentheses, quote, period. Split that sentence up, convert it to a list based on the period, right? period is the delimiter. Right? And so if we print out the string in the list, we will see that it was appropriately split up. Or let's split up a phone number, right? 1-234-567-8901, right? Kind of a phone number. Split it based on those. And there we go. All right, and so here's our original phone number, and 1 is in its own list element, 2, 3, 4. See, it's been turned into a list. Dot split is very useful. What if you needed to do the opposite? What if you had a list and you wanted to join them together? I already mentioned this, but let's do it again, right? Let's make a list of strings. L is equal to, square braces denote a list, right? Fred, end quote, comma, Jack, end quote, comma, Lindy, end quote, comma, Amanda, right? End quote, end square brace. That's our list. Now we want to build a list, a sentence based on separating those by commas, right? So the string is equal to party invitees, right? I don't know. All right, yeah, that looks weird. Employees equals, end quote, plus, now we're going to build a list based on commas. So quote, comma, quote, dot, join that list. Just like that, right? And when we print out the sentence, it's going to say employees equals Fred, Jack, Lindy, and Amanda. But it's going to be a sentence, right? I mean, it's going to be a string. Tell you what, let's just do that. S is equal to comma dot join, convert list L to a string, separated by, or delimited by commas, right? And so our sentence is now going to be equal to sentence, let's just print it out, right? Print parentheses, quote, employees equals, end quote, comma, S, right? Print that out. So down here, the employees are Fred, Jack, Lindy, and Amanda. What if we wanted a space as well as? I bet we could do that. Why don't we put a space here as well, right? Right? So employees is equal to Fred, comma, Jack, comma, Lindy, comma, Amanda. I'm going to just paste this into our notes, right, as our example. So dot split, string dot split, turns string S into a list, right? Whereas you can do S is equal to delimiter dot join L turns list L into a string. Got the word list there. With each element of the list separated by the specified delimiter. And here's our example, right? Why don't I copy not the output, or not only the output, but the code that made it? And this produces, right, like that. I may be going too far and recapping it, but I don't know. I kind of like it. Kind of like the way we've got it formatted here. May not do that every time, but I think it's useful. We're covering a lot of material this time. And so here they're separating by periods, right? So they have a file name named myfile.txt, and they call .split based on periods, and so it separated it into myfile being the first element and txt being the second element. And this is a reminder that if you use -1 as the subscript, as the index, it gets the last element. Here they're using that just to get the extensions. I guess we could demonstrate that. Let's make a list of file names, right? L is equal to a.txt, comma, or b.docx and c.exe, right? That's actually a string, isn't it? Not a list. Let's make it something that we could split, right? So we're going to separate everything by commas. And now we're going to say list is equal to s.split based on commas, right? And then we're going to print out only the file extensions. So we need to convert it into a list. We have done that. And now we're going to process every value in the list. So for value in L, colon, sometimes I abbreviate that for V and L. Let's split that into kind of a sublist, right? I can't even think of a good term for that, right? How about file spec is equal to value.split based on the period, right? And then we're going to print out only the extension. So we want the last element of the list. You know, if we print out the first element of the list, file spec subscript, right? File spec subscript 0, file spec index 0, file spec, you know, that'll print out the first element. And we could do, you know, file spec index 1 to get the second one. But what if it had multiple things in it, right? Like d:/txt:/py, right? Or something like that. And I only wanted that. Well, that subscript 1 is going to get that. So I'm going to say -1 there, first element in list, last element in list, which should be the extension, right? And then let's just comment that out. So now we're going to see a list of extensions, right? txt, docx, exe, and py. And that is in fact what we got. Use .split to convert a string full of file names into a list, then split each item in that list to get the file name and the extension, right? Then print the extension, which is the second part of that sublist, right? Of that file spec. Then split each item in that list to get the file name and the extension, storing those into a sublist called file spec. And I think I'll put the word parentheses value there, right? Reformat this a little bit, make it prettier. Right. There we go. That's what we're doing there. So we used dot split two times in a row. The first time was to separate the string into elements by commas, using commas as a delimiter. And then once each one of these elements, each one of these values is in its own list item, then we split those up with a for loop, stepping through that list, getting the file spec out, and then printing out the last element in that file spec. And if you use -2, it'll get the second to the last, and if you use -3, it'll get third to the last, and so on. What if you had a string like this? Yeah. Hello, darkness, my old friend. If you like Simon and Garfunkel, or you like the rock group Disturbed, you're familiar with that song title. That's not the song title. First word in it. All right, let's split it up. L equals s dot split, right? Split it by spaces because I did not specify the delimiter, right? No argument means split by white space, right? And then for every value in the list, let's print the first character in that word and the last character of that word. And so what are we going to see? H and O, right? D and S, M and Y, O and D, F and D, right? All each on their own line. Didn't work because I did not print out the value. I used the sentence again. Second time I've done that. For value in L, print out the first, white caps. Print out the first character because lists and strings work the same way. This gets the first character of that string, this gets the last character of that string. And that needed to match that. Because when I did S subscript 0, just got the first character of that, right? All right, let's go. Alrighty. Right, and so hello, darkness, my old friend. Seemed to work. Let's describe what we're doing here. Print the first and last letter of each word in the sentence. That's what we're using. That's what we're doing there.
Here's the big man.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
I feel like everybody's in good hands.
We're not getting through this after all. All right, text files. What is a text file? A text file is just a file containing ASCII characters. We already know what a text file is. Let's make one. Let's make a new file, right? And I'm going to call it, I don't know, song lyrics, you know. Lyrics.txt. Hello, darkness, my old friend. You know what, I'm probably going to botch these. How good to see you once again. I'm totally botching this. I should have picked some song I know. Row, row, row your boat gently down the sea. Merrily, merrily. Did I spell correctly? Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. How come gently to the sea? I even botched this, right? Life is but a dream. Right? That's that sentence. And then row, row, row your, or propel, propel, propel your vessel softly through the solution. Ecstatically, or happily. Existence is but an illusion. Period. I'm going to get rid of the period there. All right, I'm going to save my file. All right. Lyrics.txt. I'm going to save it as a txt file, right? Lyrics.txt. So I changed this to save as type. And you can make a text file by using Notepad, right? You can fire up Notepad or some text editor on your Mac. I just use idle if I was on a Mac to make absolutely sure it was a txt file. Just give it that file extension, change it to save as type. There we go, right? And now let's open that file. We're going to open that file for reading, right? So this is file IO. DEF file IO examples, or text file IO examples. How about just text file examples? Right? Let's open a file for reading. We could ask the user for the file name, right? File name equals s.input, almost made that a method, input parentheses, in parentheses, enter file name to open colon, end quote, like that. So we have a file name. Now let's open the file. File is equal to open parentheses, file name, comma, R for reading. Whoops. Quote R. In their example that popped up, they used apostrophes rather than double quotes. Either works fine. Okay. Now that we have the file open, let's read it in. Now there's lots of ways to read a file in, right? We could do s is equal to file.read. That reads the whole thing into the sentence at one fell swoop, right, at one time. Now that's not necessarily a good idea. This file could be, you know, hundreds of kilobytes long, in which case you just stored 100 kilobytes in a single string. You might run your program out of memory. So we're going to do it in a different way in a minute. All right. I never called the function. I defined it and never called it, right? I wrote it, created a new function, never called it. And I seem to be indenting this oddly. There. So down in main, we're going to call text file examples now. Text file underscore examples, right? Just like that. All right, lyrics.txt. All right, it didn't do anything, did it? Because I forgot to actually process the data. But we could print it out, right? Print parentheses quote, file read, s equals end quote, comma, s, right? And that's because .read reads the entire thing into the string. Right? So lyrics.txt, I forget if I called it single, plural, or singular. All right, and so that is our string, right? Why don't we prove the point that it's all one string? In the way we print it out, we're going to say that this is a formatted string, and we're going to put, you know, a single apostrophe rather than a double apostrophe there. And then we're going to use curly braces as our placeholder and another single apostrophe, a double quote to end the string, right? You see what I'm doing? Just using single apostrophes here to put around the string. What happened there? All right. Lyrics.txt, right? There we go, right? There's the beginning of our string, there's the end of our string. Now that might be useful, it might not be. Let's print it out based on every line being on its own. It's probably more useful. If it's 1,000,000 lines long, then we don't want to store 1,000,000 lines into a single variable at once, right? So let's add some comments. .read, or f.read, stores the entire contents of the text file f into string s. So s is equal to f.read. That's what that does. Let's copy and paste that up into our notes. Wow, we got a lot of notes. And so, if we want to process it line by line, we can do that. For line in F processes each line of text file F separately, right? So the first line is going to be row, row, row your boat. The second line is going to be gently to the sea, right? Let's do that. For line in file, for every line in the file, how does it know that it's a line? It ends in a character term, right? It ends in a /n, and ends in a new line. Let's print that line out. And let's say, let's do the same kind of thing we did here, right? Quote, line equals curly brace line, in curly brace, end quote, in parentheses. But again, let's put our little single quotes around it so it'll look cool. We're not going to like the output very much yet, but we will. We'll get it there. Why does it do that? I want you to type down here, lyrics.txt. I'm not seeing the rest of my output. Oh, that's because I've already read the file, right? And so there's no data left. How do you rewind your file? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's find out. Rewind text file Python. How to use the seek method to reset your file read position. So if you call f.seek0, that'll take you back to the beginning. f.seek, or excuse me, file.seek 0. Go back to the beginning of the file. Right? Process every file. Process every line. We had to do that because we'd already read the entire file. We could have also closed it and reopened it. That's kind of wasteful, right? Takes additional time to open a file. I put a colon here for some reason. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Getting kind of tired of typing. Right? Line is equal to curly brace line. Looks like I forgot the F, right, to make it a formatted string. Let's do that. Got to put that F there. Don't know why I'm formatting those so fancy, but why not? Lyrics.txt, right? Okay, now check it out. It's putting the line, the carriage return in our data. And so when I print it out, it spans 2 lines. I don't want it to do that. I only want it to have 1 line, right? So we need to strip the white space off. If we call dot strip, it'll remove that new line. Let's do that. And specifically, we might want to call lstrip to only remove the space at the end of the line, because what if we had tabbed these? We might want to see the space at the beginning of the file. But I'm just going to call strip so that if there were some spaces or tabs at the beginning, those would be gone as well. Because you can call rstrip, lstrip, and just strip without any letter in front of it whatsoever. So let's do that. We're going to say line equals line dot strip, parentheses and parentheses, because it's a function, it's a method, right? Remove white space and \n from the beginning and end of the string. A couple more things to add to our notes. We've used .seek. We've used file.read, right? I don't think we've got those. We've used open. Alrighty, so we're getting a lot of notes here. Oh, we've already done .open. No, we didn't, right? F equals open, parentheses, file name, comma, quote, R. Opens the file for reading, right? Or I could just say file equals open. Guess what? If you put a W there, it opens it for writing. It'll erase the file that's already there, so you need to be careful. If you use A, it'll probably append. If that's not the command, you can figure it out. You can Google it up. How do you open a Python file for appending if that's what you want to do, right? So fread, parentheses and parentheses, stores the entire file. For line and F, processes each line. Now the next one is a string function, so I'm going to put it back up here. How about way up here? We had some good extreme examples, right? How about s.strip? Removes white space and new lines from beginning and end of the string. And while we're at it, why don't we use rstrip and lstrip? R means the right side, so that's the end. So it just removes the white space from the end of the string. Whereas lstrip removes the white space and new lines from beginning of the string. Now there'll never be a new line at the beginning of the string, probably, but if it's got tabs or something at the beginning, we might want to strip those. Right? Now there's another one called .readLines, which will store every line of the file into a list. Now I don't normally do that because if I open a file, I usually process it line by line like this, so that it's only got one line in memory at a time. But if I wanted to, let's reset back to the beginning again. File.seek, parentheses 0, in parentheses. That's another rewind, right? Whoops. Okay. So L is equal to file.readLines. Store an entire file into list L each line in its own element of the list. So I'm going to copy that print statement and just make it a little bit different, right? File read, L equals, like that. At this point, I probably don't need the apostrophes around it. I think it'll be real obvious. Right. All right. So, the two things we did. The one is we stripped off the new lines of each line, so it printed it out, you know, without those blank lines between everything. Looks much better. Here we have an empty line. Maybe we don't want to print empty lines. We could use an if statement, right? If the length of that line is equal to 0, don't print it. And here we read the entire file using read lines with an S, and it stored every line, including the \n, that we see those there, right, in its own element of the list. And that is one way to process it, right? If you wanted to process it that way, you could print them out, right? For value in L colon print value, right? Element equals end quote comma value, right? Now at least they'd all be on their own lines. And again, we have our \n, right? So we have these blank lines, and again we have, right? Anyways, so we could strip those as well if we wanted to. For every value in L, value equals value.strip, right? Get rid of the \n. Then print it out. It'll look better. All right, but let's check to see if the length of the line is 0. Better make sure that it's greater than 0. If len parentheses, line in parentheses, is greater than 0, that's the only time we want to print it out. We want to ignore the blank lines. And we could do the same thing down here, right? Except we're calling it value. We could call it line just as easily, right, for every line in the list. I'm going to stick with value because that's how we've written our other for loops. So if the value, if the len parentheses value in parentheses colon is greater than 0, then print it out. Alrighty, so each line, when we were processing it with the for loop for line in file, printed it out ignoring the blank lines. And here, when we used read lines, it printed it out by elements. Print parentheses quote \n process file with for line in file loop end quote in parentheses, because that's what we're doing there, right? And here we're going to process using read lines, right? So I'm going to print this again, \n process file by using read lines to store end quote print parentheses quote every line in its own element in a list. That's what we're doing there. That just makes our output look prettier. Lyrics.txt. All right. All right, we need to talk about projects. So let's go and look at our PowerPoint, see how much further we need to go. We're almost at the end. I would like to think that. Text files and their format. Here's a text file containing 6 floating point numbers per line, separated by spaces. Doesn't look like 6. Looks like, oh, it says 6 floating point numbers, 3 per line, right? Open a file, F equals open, file name, inside quotes, comma W. Instead, we were storing the file name in its own separate variable. If the file does not exist, it is created. That's what W is for. Let's create a file and write to it. So we need to close our file, file.close. Always close your file when done with it. Right, you don't want to keep that file open. You might not be able to copy it or back it up or, you know, stuff like that. You've seen errors when you try to open a file and another program already has it open, right? Let's create a new file. File equals open, parentheses, called new file.txt, end quote, end parentheses, right? But we want to open it for writing. So comma, quote, R. Excuse me, W, because we're writing it, right? Now let's print some data to it. Print, parentheses, quote, when in the course, end quote, comma, file equals file. I don't like that way that looks, so I'm going to say F is equal to open. File equals F, right? And then print, parentheses, quote, when in the course of human events, end quote, comma, file equals F. Now there's another way to print, which is the way that the book shows you how to do it. I just wanted to show you that you could write to a file using a print statement, right? Print to a file. That's how you do that. Print to a file. Then we're going to close our file. File.close. And now let's open the file using Notepad. I believe it's called system, parentheses, quote, notepad.exe, and this won't work if you're on a Mac, by the way. There's a way to get it to work on a Mac, but you don't use notepad.exe, and I forget how to do it right off the bat. So, and then we're going to open, what's our file name? New file.txt, end quote, in parentheses. And if that doesn't work, then I'm just going to delete the line and go on with it. So this is a demonstration of file output. System is not defined. Okay, great. I forgot how to do it right. That's a call on another language, not this language. Get rid of that. I know it's possible. Not going to look it up right now. Oh, I'm so tempted to look it up. Run a program from Python. How do I exit okay, you import system, and then you call os.system. Let's just try that. Import system, and then system dot, oh, excuse me, OS, import OS. Let's get the right library. Import OS, or from OS, import the system call, and then system notepad new file.txt. for Windows only. And it did it. But there wasn't anything in our file for some reason. Probably because it was opening this file in some other directory. If I do file save as, it's saving it to G:. I'm not sure where that file name is, where it's saving. I could force the issue, right? I could do open the file. I'm going to save it in my G drive, right? Like that. I used a / rather than a / because that's a format that works both on Mac and Windows and Linux and stuff. And I'm worried that a \n might be treated as a new line. Okay, maybe that'll work. Let's give it a shot. It's not giving it a shot. How about that? Not working. Is it because when I'm writing my data out, I'm not putting \n? And Notepad is failing on it? Maybe I should have written it out using the function that's in the textbook. But I know this works. Yeah, it's not working. All right. Why is that? Let's go and try and open our file through Python instead. One of my files is here. And it's there if I open it in Python. It's not there if I open it in Notepad. So forget it. Again, I'm going to delete that line. Notepad is failing to open it. I must be giving it, it's opening it in the wrong directory, something stupid. Get rid of that. And in that case, I'm going to get rid of the G:/. All right, so now we've got it. We can open the file up. Sure, why not, right? File equals open, quote, new file.txt, end quote, comma, quote for reading. And then for line and file, colon, let's strip the line. Line equals line.strip. And then let's print each word separately. So for word in line, colon, but what if the line doesn't have any data in it? So if len parentheses line in parentheses is greater than 0, colon, for word in line, print word in line equals end quote, comma, word in parentheses in Dart4, right? Don't need that, it just kind of helps me visualize what I'm doing. Lyrics.txt. I'm not seeing our expected output. That's why I paused there. We're not seeing this new file.txt for reading. Is it just not saved fast enough to be open? The data is there, we proved it, right? If we open it up like this and we go to my directory, new file.txt, double click on it, when in the course of human events, well, see, now it's even got those blank lines between it that we don't want because of the \n's I added to the print statements. Tell you what, I'm just going to print parentheses file.read, parentheses in parentheses, that's going to print out the entire file. I'm kind of at a loss as to why it didn't work, so lyrics.txt. Well, isn't that weird? Do I need to give it time? I'm going to put an input statement in here to pause, right? Input parentheses quote, pause, dash, press any, or press return to continue. press enter, right, to continue. Right. Lyrics.txt. And I typed the wrong file name in, so it didn't spot it. Try that again. Just because I typed in the wrong file name, I was typing blind there. All right. Lyrics.txt. Pause, press enter to continue. All right, I'm about to throw a fit, but I need to take a break anyways. I'll be right back. All right, so here's a mystery to me. Instead of opening new file.txt, I opened lyrics.txt because that's been working all along, right? I think I'm going to change this to output.txt, output.txt, run it. I'm so lost. I'm sorry, gang. If I open the file here, if I open text files, and I go to the drive where it's saved, output.txt, there it is, bigger than life. There's got to be a rational explanation for this. Well, I see why this is no longer working, right? Because after you call .read, you need to seek back to the beginning. But I really don't think that's the issue. I'm going to get rid of that. Output.txt, let's open a different file because I'm getting tired of the other one, right? And the file is definitely there. It opened just fine, right? When in the course of human events. Absolutely proving it's working. Pause, press enter to continue. Didn't work. That's crazy. Worked up higher, didn't work here. Maybe you see my confusion. It definitely worked up higher. File equals open, right? File.close. I closed it beforehand. Oh, I see why. That is dumb. I opened my file as F, but I didn't call f.close. I called file.close. Now remember when I said you have to close your file? The file is still open, so this failed. I'm surprised it didn't crash. I'm surprised it didn't generate an error. We could check to see if the file worked, right? We could check to see if this opened. How do you do that? Check to see if file opened Python. Check to see if a file is open in Python. I assume you're writing to the file. Okay, so you can use a try except. Well, anyways, without the .close being called. So what should I have done? I've been using a variable file the whole time. The only reason I didn't use that is because I thought that file equals file looked weird. So I just need to remember to close the right file, right? Close the file. Alrighty, got to find out how that works. I'm afraid to run it and find out. And there it went, right? It printed out every word in that file when in the course of human events. And it left the space out. I mean, it didn't leave the space out. Why is there no break between when in the course and of human events? It's because the break between here and here is a \n, right? And we said don't print out \n's, in effect. Don't print out empty lines. And so it didn't print anything there. But we could say, right, we could strip that word, and if that word is empty, don't print it out. So here we go. For every word in the line, let's strip that word. Word equals word.strip. And if LE in parentheses word is greater than 0, colon, print the word out, right? All right, now it removed even the spaces, right? When in a course of human events. All right, I'm getting so tired of typing in lyrics.txt that I could hard code that. I'm tempted to, but why don't we copy this as an example into our notes, right? Up here. So file.r we've done, file.w we've done. So example, file equals open, file name, comma r, and then tab this over for every value. Wait, no, I didn't want to do that. For every, I wanted to do the other one. For line in file, right, colon, the line is equal to line.strip. And then if the length of the line is greater than 0, print out the line, right? Or do something useful with it. So notes, to ignore blank lines, strip the line and then check its length with an if statement as shown above. All right, we're coming up on an hour-and-a-half lecture. I'm not going to want to go much more than that. Writing numbers to a file. Here they're using fwrite rather than print. That works just as well. So here we're importing the random function, and we're going to write out 100 files to it. And of course the for loop ought to be tabbed over. Kind of used to them making that mistake, aren't we? Okay, so let's close this file. This time our file variable is called file, right? We don't need this. So file.close. Now we're going to open the file for writing, a new one, right? File.open numbers.txt, end quote, comma, quote, W for writing, end quote, in parentheses. Let's write some numbers. Import random. And then for x in range 1, 10,000, let's write out a whole bunch of numbers. Num equals random dot rand int, a number between 1 and 100, right? Now let's print that out. F.write, parentheses, number, in parentheses. Now that's not good enough. You'll probably see why in a minute. I'm going to go back and look at this. They want us to add a new line to it, or else it'll all be out on one line, not even separated by spaces, right? We definitely want every number on its own line, so let's modify our code to do that. Write that number out, but we got to convert it to a string first. Maybe you see why I like using the print statement. Plus, quote, \n, end quote, right? End for. I guess we had another for loop up here that we could have closed as well. So I'm going to run it. Lyrics.txt, enter to continue. Ooh, object has no attribute open. I done goofed. Excuse me, file equals open. Not dumb. Another language there that my brain slipped into. And here I call it F, when now my file is called file. Keep blipping between the two variables. If I F is equal to open, F dot write, and then F dot close. And you know what? Now it is going to work. So import system from OS, system, parentheses, quote, notepad, space, numbers.txt, end quote, in parentheses. Just to see my output. Import OS, os.system. And there's our file, right? 10,000 numbers in it. Sure wrote to it quickly, right? File I/O is fast. The slowest thing you can do on a computer is display information on a screen. Everything else is remarkably fast. Okay. We could print out X followed by that number, right? Now it's getting about to the time where we could use a formatted print statement, right? Or a write statement. Right, we could print out the curly brace of X and then the curly brace of the number, right? Followed by the \en. Close curly brace there. So we'll see all the numbers and we'll see the random numbers, right? Because X is counting from 1 to, well actually that's only going to 10 to 9999, right? So I'm going to make that say from 1 to 10,000. Now it's weird. You'd expect maybe that'd go up to 99, but when you're calling randint, it really is the top, right? It's not the top minus 1. And there it is, right? Line number 1. If we scroll down to the bottom, we would see line number 10,000. All right, so now we know how to print to save data to a file. Why don't we put both ways in our notes up here? Output to file, open it with open parentheses file name, comma, quote, W for write. Then either use print data, comma, file equals F, where F is the file variable, or use F.write data, but make sure there is a \n in the data. So examples, right? F is equal to open parentheses t.txt, end quote, comma, quote, W for writing. And then F dot write, I love Python. \n, right? Like that. Or f.print, parentheses quote, I really, really do, end quote, comma, file equals f. Notice that you can leave the \n off because print automatically goes to the next line, whereas write does not. Make sure the \n is there if using f.write, but skip it if using print file equals f. Hope that makes sense. So you open a file for input, similar for opening it for output. F equals open myfile.txt, comma R. If you call .read, it reads the entire file, right? We've discussed that. Once you're done reading the whole thing, read will return an empty string. You're only allowed to read it once, unless you call f.seek to rewind it. Or you can call f.readLine to only get one line at a time. But if you're only going to get one line at a time, I would just use the for syntax. I guess I could add it to the notes, but I'm not going to write it into the code. So up in the top of our notes where we're talking about how to read from a file, you could use or f.readLine will read a single line of the file, but I always use a for line in F loop. Reading numbers from a file. We've done that. Open the file. For every line in the file, strip the line. Apparently they're not expecting any blank lines, so they don't have an if len parentheses line greater than 0. Read the line in, convert it into an int, then add it to the sum, and then after the line is over, do that. I'm just going to copy and paste that line into our notes. Adding every number in a file. Stored one number per line. That's what this is an example of. Better use single quotes here. And here. Right. Also here, of course. But let's do the thing where we ignore blank lines, even though they didn't. If len parentheses line in parentheses is greater than 0, colon. Then get that number, convert it to an int. Why are we converting it to an int? What if it's got a period in it? Convert it to a float. There we go, like that. That's our example for doing that. Open the file, use a for loop, strip the line, make sure that it's not a blank line, do something with that data, then close it. Didn't close it yet, did I? F.close. Here they're doing it with the numbers might be separated by spaces, right? So they're using dot split on it to get a word list. And then for every word in the word list, they get the number out of it. They add it to the sum. And this isn't showing closing a file, right? I'm going to copy and paste that as well. Do the same thing as above, but there might be multiple numbers per line, right, like that. Multiple numbers per line, be limited by spaces, separated by spaces. And again, I'm going to, even though they didn't do it, I'm going to ignore blank lines, right? So after let's strip it first. They didn't do that, but I'm going to. Line is equal to line dot strip. And then we're going to check to make sure. We're going to trim it, right? Line equals line dot, wait, we already did that with dot strip, right? So if the length of the line is greater than 0, it's worth doing the rest of it. Like that. Oh yeah, and always close the file. So open is important, dot close, dot write, dot read line, all very good stuff. And accessing and manipulating files and directories on a disk. And honestly, I'm going to save this for the next lecture. This is learning how to use the operating system, like to get a list of files. And it's worth spending 30, 45 minutes talking about this stuff. So I'm going to hang on. We're going to do this next time. All right, let's go take a look at the quiz and make sure it's not too weird. So where's the quiz for chapter 4? Start the assignment. I'm not going to give you every answer. I don't know how to skip from quiz to quiz, answer to answer though. Oh, good, there's a skip button. Good deal. A Caesar cipher locates the coded text of a plain text distance. Why is that highlighted? Okay. A given distance to the left or right computes 2 or more encrypted characters. Well, that doesn't sound right. An inversion matrix, I don't know what that is. Encrypts the entire message at the same time. Well, that's weird. I'm not liking some of those answers. Skip that. The variable data refers to the string no way. The expression -1, data -1 evaluates 2. Well, you ought to be able to do that. I told you what a negative index means. Data subscript 3, excuse me. Here we're using slicing, right? And go from 3 to 6, which means starting at position 3 and going 3 more characters because 6 minus 3 is 3, or starting at position 3 and going up to 5 because it stops 1 before the 6. I just like saying 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, so where is character 3? Remember, start counting at 0. 0, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and 5. That gets us 3 characters starting at position 3. Position 0, position 1, position 2, that's W is position 3, and then get 3 more. 6 minus 3 is 3. find searches the string and returns the position of it, right? So what is the position of .find? You know what? I don't even remember lecturing about that. Did I skip a slide? Let's find out. Let's find the position of the word islands. N is equal to s.find, parentheses, quote, islands, end quote, in parentheses. And then print out, islands was found at position, end quote, comma, n, right? Or index. Index is a better word. And then why don't we pause? So input parentheses, quote, pause, press enter to continue. Give it a go. And it was found at position 7. Sounds right. Right? That's position 7, right? So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's 7. What if it's not in there? What if we looked for the word? What if we didn't know how to spell islands and we left the S off? Right, so -1. That's worth adding to our notes up at the top. Stuff about strings rather than file I/O. Okay, so this is file I/O notes. The last thing, s.find, parentheses, S2 finds the index of string S2 in S, in string S. It returns the index where S2 begins, or -1 if not found, right? So if our string is equal to Snoopy, and we try to find the position of the double O's, or even the first O, right? N is equal to s.find, parentheses, quote, OO, end quote, in parentheses, print N. Well, where's the OO found? It's in position 0, 1, 2, right? Prints 2. Which file method reads the entire file? We talked about that. If you use .replace, it replaces no with the word yes, right? The expression data.replace no yes would replace the word no with the word yes. Binary integer value 8, well, the place values are 1, 2, 4, and 8, right? So binary place values are 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1, and you would know the rest, right? 32 and so on. And so if you needed an 8, you would just put a 1 there and then a 0 after it, right? And then if you needed a 7, it would be 1, 1, 1, right? Is a 7. You might want to put the 0 there as well, right? Let's get rid of that 16 column, right? Anyways, so you know that. You know what an 8 is. Its 8th place is turned on and the rest of them are all left as 0. Data 1 is the second character in the string, right? Because data subscript 0 is the first character. What does 3 1s mean? You can add those together. A Caesar cipher. Oh, we're back to the beginning of the list. Okay, that wasn't as hard as I thought. All right, cool deal. All right, I'm going to record a separate little mini lecture about projects. way the projects are going to work is I want you to do a project. If you do the project, you get to skip the exam. It's worth mentioning the midterm. We've gone 5 weeks. It's a little late for a midterm, but I think that's okay. The midterm is going to be just like another quiz. You can take it over and over, except it's a quiz inside Canvas, not MindTap.